I'm Aiden, a 28-year-old graduate student with a master's in engineering. I'd like to share with you the most incredible and heartbreaking experience of my life. It all started 6 years ago, when I was studying in the university library. It was an ordinary afternoon, and I was gathering information for a project. Suddenly, a girl caught my attention. She was intently reading an anthropological book, her hand rapidly jotting down notes. Our eyes met between the shelves, and she smiled shyly. At that moment, I felt my heart skip a beat. I found the courage to greet her and learned that her name was Evelyn and that she was a doctoral student in anthropology. We chatted and were pleasantly surprised to find that we shared many academic interests. We discussed the intersection of anthropology and engineering, and the discussion continued until the library closed. After that day, we started dating more often. We attended academic seminars, explored corners of the city together, went hiking and camping on the weekends, and Evelyn's family loved me so much that they invited me over for dinner. Our relationship quickly grew, and I realized that she was the one I wanted to spend my life with. A year later, I asked Evelyn to marry me, and she was thrilled to say yes. Our wedding was simple, but full of blessings from friends and family. Looking at Evelyn's happy smile, I vowed to keep this love forever until the end of my life. We planned our future together and promised to support each other in our pursuit of career and academic success. Shortly after her marriage, Evelyn was offered the wonderful opportunity to travel to Jamaica for a 3-month religious studies program. Although I was uneasy about the prolonged separation, I knew it would be crucial to her doctoral dissertation. I encouraged her to take advantage of this opportunity to advance her research. Before Evelyn left, we promised to keep in touch. I promised her that I would study and work hard in China and wait for her triumphant return. We hugged each other tightly at the airport, and I watched her bag disappear at the security checkpoint. Although I was reluctant to part with her, I firmly believe that as long as our hearts are in the same place, distance will not be able to block true love. Who would have thought that this goodbye would be the turning point in our marriage? In retrospect, Evelyn's trip to Jamaica seemed like the beginning of a betrayal. And I, like a fool, had no idea what was about to happen. I was naive enough to envision a bright future, not realizing that pain and tears were waiting ahead. At that time, I could not have imagined that my beloved wife would betray our marriage. I never thought that I would have to resort to extreme measures to defend my honor. It all started with a chance encounter in the library, with a smile that made me fall in love at first sight with Evelyn. For the first few weeks after Evelyn left, we kept in frequent contact. We talked on the phone every day, sharing our lives and our work. But gradually, she began to become difficult to contact. Sometimes, I called and texted her all day long, but she didn't respond. At first, I thought she was just immersed in her heavy research work. But a month later, I received a disturbing phone call. The caller, a student in the same program, asked me if I knew anything about Evelyn's relationship with Professor Xavier, the program director. He didn't say much, but there were hints that made me suspicious. I can't believe Evelyn would betray our marriage. We'd been together for 6 years and loved each other. How could she? But the student's words were like a thorn in my side that wouldn't go away. I began to think about how Evelyn had been acting lately, how she'd cut down on contact and how she seemed distracted on the phone. Once the seed of doubt is planted, it grows wildly. I found myself unable to concentrate on my studies and work, and scenes of Evelyn's possible infidelity kept popping up in my mind. I even started having nightmares about Evelyn being with a strange man who laughed at my ignorance and naivety. Finally, one sleepless night, I made up my mind to find the truth. I started secretly investigating Evelyn's communication records, hoping to find some clues. I checked her cell phone bill first and found that she had a large number of calls and text messages with an unknown number, more frequent and longer than her contact with me. My heart sank, but I didn't want to fully believe my assumptions. I continued to check her social media accounts, trying to find more clues. However, to my dismay, I didn't find any obvious evidence. Evelyn's social media accounts contained very little about her trip to Jamaica, mostly pictures of scenery and no suspicious people. Just as I was about to give up, I thought of one last possible source of clues: Evelyn's voicemail. I dialed her number, typed in her password, and started checking the messages. At first, the messages were mostly inconsequential, from Evelyn's co-workers and friends. But when I heard Professor Xavier's voice, my heart clenched. He had left several messages, intimate and full of ambiguous hints. From his words, I learned that they were not only teachers and students, but also lovers. At that moment, I felt like the sky was spinning and it was hard to breathe. I desperately tried to hold on to the last shred of hope, praying that it was just a misunderstanding. But the truth was staring me in the face. My wife, the woman I had loved for 6 years, had betrayed our marriage. I sat down on the floor, tears blurring my vision. I remembered our first meeting, our wedding, our vows together. It was all a big lie, a cruel joke. I felt a deep sense of despair and anger, and I couldn't believe that I had become a fool in the eyes of Evelyn and Professor Xavier. I don't understand. Why is Evelyn doing this to me? What did I do wrong? I gave her all my love and supported her career. Why did I end up like this? I was filled with questions and pain, and I didn't sleep a wink. Despite the voicemail message as evidence, deep down, I was still holding out hope that it was all just a terrible misunderstanding. I decided to find some more solid evidence before jumping to conclusions. So I targeted Evelyn's laptop. I knew that to find the truth, I had to take a chance. While Evelyn was still in Jamaica working on her research project, I opened the laptop she had left at home. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding, and I knew I was invading her privacy. But I had no choice. I had to know the truth. I opened her email and began searching for anything related to Professor Xavier. Soon, I found a large number of email exchanges. As I read them one by one, my heart sank lower and lower, and a mixture of anger and sadness almost engulfed me. The emails were full of intimacy and flirtation. They called each other darling, talked about plans to meet, and missed each other. What shocked and angered me even more was that they mocked my ignorance and naivety in the emails, treating me like a fool. Professor Xavier wrote in an email, "Poor Aiden. Does he really think you go to Jamaica just for research? Does he know what we do every night?" Evelyn's reply stung even more. "He's too naive to suspect anything. To him, I'll always be the faithful wife." But what really cracked me up was the content of another email in which Evelyn mentioned that they had used my homemade wheat lube in an intimate moment. She wrote, "Aiden spent months researching this recipe, and I can't believe we used it for this. It was so exciting. It was like cheating on him." I stared at the screen in disbelief, tears blurring my vision. I felt a wave of disgust and humiliation, as if someone had slapped me in the face. When I made that bottle of lubricant for Evelyn, I did it with the intention of surprising her and increasing our intimacy. What I didn't realize was that they were using it to humiliate me, as an erotic device for cheating. At that moment, I realized that I was not only the object of their ridicule, but also used by them. They treated my love as a joke and my sincerity as a stepping stone. My love, my dignity, were trampled on by them. I slumped in my chair, feeling a choking despair. A million images flashed through my mind. Our first meeting, our wedding, the good times we had together. It was all a big lie, an elaborate hoax. After discovering Evelyn's and Professor Xavier's betrayal, I fell into a deep state of despair and anger. I knew that I had to take action and make them suffer the consequences of their betrayal. But I also realized that the path to revenge had to be careful and deliberate, and I couldn't let my emotions dictate my actions. A few weeks later, Evelyn returned home from her research project in Jamaica. On the surface, our lives seemed to return to normal, but only I knew that something had changed inside me. I began to plot my revenge, and every detail had to be carefully planned and perfected. I thought back to their emails mocking my ignorance and their use of my homemade lubricant to humiliate me. This gave me an idea. I would use the one thing they knew and trusted the most to deal them a fatal blow. I wanted them to feel the pain of betrayal in their most intimate moments. I began researching various substances that could cause skin irritation and reactions, hoping to find a colorless, odorless, but highly effective ingredient. After searching through a lot of medical and chemical information, I learned about a plant extract called poison ivy that causes a severe allergic reaction to the skin, similar to herpes. This was exactly what I needed. I used the resources of my laboratory to secretly extract this poison ivy juice. In order to hide it from the public, I planted some poison ivy plants in the backyard of my house so that I could get it whenever I needed it. Whenever Evelyn went to the library to study or went out to meet her friends, I would take the time to carry out my secret experiments. After repeated tests and formula adjustments, I finally created a special lubricant. This lubricant has a tiny amount of poison ivy juice added to it, but it looks and smells just like regular lubricant. I knew that if Evelyn used this lubricant, her skin would develop herpes-like symptoms, which was exactly what I wanted. In order not to arouse Evelyn's suspicion, I put the special lubricant into the spray bottle of lubricant we had been using. I carefully cleaned and handled the bottle to make sure there was no trace of it. I knew that Evelyn would use the lubricant at some point, and that would be a key step in my revenge plan. My goal is to make Evelyn think she has herpes and blame it on Professor Xavier. I want her to feel the pain of betrayal and deception, just like she did to me. I'm going to throw their relationship into doubt and mistrust, and I'm going to make them taste the consequences of their own actions. The process of making and replacing the lubricant was risky and challenging, but the desire for vengeance kept me on my toes. I knew that once the plan was implemented, there would be no turning back. But I was prepared to use the one thing they trusted and relied on the most to realize my revenge. After crafting a special lubricant with poison ivy juice, I waited for the critical moment in my plan for revenge. I knew that after Evelyn used the lubricant, her skin would develop herpes-like symptoms. My goal was to make her think she really had herpes and point the finger at Professor Xavier. To accomplish this, I needed to do some additional preparation. I had to make sure that when Evelyn realized the symptoms and sought help, she would contact Professor Xavier first, not me. This would require some skill and subterfuge. I waited for Evelyn to fall asleep. Late one night, after she had fallen asleep, I quietly picked up her cell phone. I carefully unlocked the screen and began to execute my plan. First, I found my contact information in her address book and deleted it. That way, when Evelyn tried to contact me, she would find that my number no longer existed. Next, I searched for Professor Xavier's number and replaced it with my own. That way, when Evelyn tried to contact Professor Xavier, she was actually sending me a message. When I was done, I put Evelyn's cell phone back where it belonged and quietly returned to my bed. My heart was pounding because I knew that the crucial step of revenge had been accomplished. Now, all I had to do was wait for Evelyn to use the special lubricant and watch things unfold. A few days later, that moment finally arrived. One morning, Evelyn woke up and started complaining about the discomfort and burning sensation on her skin. I feigned concern and asked if she needed help, but Evelyn looked embarrassed and uncomfortable and told me she could handle it herself. I knew that this was the moment she was going to contact Professor Xavier for help. Sure enough, as I pretended to leave the room, I heard the beep of a cell phone message. I quickly went back into the bedroom, grabbed my cell phone, and saw the message from Evelyn. In her message, Evelyn describes her symptoms and expresses concern that she may have contracted herpes. She sought advice and comfort from Professor Xavier, hoping that he might be able to give her some guidance. I, in turn, responded to her message as Professor Xavier. I told Evelyn that based on the symptoms she described, she probably had herpes. Pretending to be surprised and angry, I questioned her about whether she was having sex with anyone else. I told her that I was very disappointed in her and that our relationship was no longer viable. Evelyn looked shocked and flustered when she received these messages. She tried to explain and defend herself, but I did not respond. I convinced her that Professor Xavier had lost faith in her and that their relationship had come to an end. Over the next few days, Evelyn became very depressed. She tried to contact Professor Xavier, but I deliberately did not respond to her messages. I made her feel the pain of abandonment and betrayal, just as she had done to me. As I watched Evelyn's daily tears, I felt the thrill of revenge inside me. I knew that this was only the first step in my revenge plan. Next, I was going to embarrass them in public and break up their relationship. After I replied to Evelyn as Professor Xavier, telling her that she may have contracted herpes and offering to end their relationship, Evelyn was in a state of great shock and confusion. She couldn't believe that someone she trusted and adored would do this to her. Over the next few days, Evelyn tried to contact Professor Xavier in every way she could to get an explanation. She texted him, called him, and even went to his office. But Xavier never responded to her contacts, which made her feel even more desperate and angry. Finally, on a Tuesday afternoon, Evelyn decided to go straight to Xavier's office to confront him. She angrily walked into his office building and stormed right into his office without even knocking. What happened next was exactly what I expected. Evelyn was in Xavier's office screaming at the top of her lungs, asking him why he had abandoned her and why he had treated her so cruelly. She cried hysterically, so loud that the entire office building could hear her. Xavier was clearly taken aback by Evelyn's sudden appearance and vehement accusations. He was at a loss as to how to react. He tries to calm Evelyn down, but Evelyn has completely lost her mind. She was screaming at the top of her lungs, accusing Xavier of heartlessness and betrayal. Evelyn's behavior quickly caught the attention of other professors and students. People came out of their offices to see what was going on. When they saw Evelyn's hysterical behavior and Xavier's embarrassed reaction, they immediately realized the seriousness of the situation. Some people started to talk and speculate about their relationship, while others pulled out their cell phones and started taking pictures and videos. Xavier tried to get Evelyn to stop, but she wouldn't listen. She continued to shout accusations at Xavier, exposing their illicit relationship and how he had cheated and used her. The news quickly spread throughout the campus, and more people gathered outside Xavier's office to see what the fuss was all about. More and more people gathered outside of Xavier's office to witness the farce, and Xavier's co-workers and students were shocked by his behavior and had serious questions about his integrity. The story grew so big that it eventually alerted the school's administration. They quickly intervened and began investigating Xavier's relationship with Evelyn. In the face of overwhelming evidence and eyewitness testimonies, Xavier could no longer deny it. He finally confessed to his illicit relationship with Evelyn and felt ashamed and regretful for his behavior. The school imposed a severe penalty on Xavier. He was dismissed from his teaching position and asked to leave the school immediately. The news quickly spread throughout the academic community, and Xavier's reputation and career were devastated. Evelyn, too, is traumatized by the drama. She was ashamed, angry, and overwhelmed by Xavier's betrayal. Her school and personal life are in turmoil. As I watched this unfold, I felt the thrill of vengeance in my heart. My plan had worked, and I had succeeded in giving them a taste of betrayal. I embarrassed them in public and broke up their relationship. This was the price they had to pay for lying to me and betraying me. Our marriage came to an end after Evelyn's affair with Professor Xavier was publicly exposed on campus. Although my plan for revenge has been successfully implemented, my relationship with Evelyn is beyond repair. We began to discuss divorce. However, due to Evelyn's hesitation and struggle, we did not file for divorce immediately. She seemed to have a glimmer of hope that our marriage could be saved. But for me, the hurt of betrayal was so deep that I could no longer trust her. In order to give each other some time and space, we decided to live apart for a while. In this way, we could think calmly about our future in a separate environment and determine whether we really wanted to end the marriage. I moved out of our shared home and rented a small apartment. Every night, I think of the good times we had, the vows and dreams we shared. But these memories now only bring pain and resentment. During our separation, our lives changed dramatically, and Evelyn was unable to focus on her doctoral research because of the scandal. She finally decided to give up her studies and work as a tutor to take care of her children. This was a huge blow to her once ambitious career. Professor Xavier, too, lost his university teaching position when the scandal broke. His academic reputation was so badly damaged that he was never able to gain a foothold in academia again. As I understand it, he ended up teaching in a high school, which was a huge setback for him. As for myself, during the time I was separated, I put all my energy into my work. I tried to improve my professional skills and seek for better career development opportunities. At the same time, I also started to learn about finance and investment, hoping to better manage our joint assets. A year of separation has flown by. During this year, both Evelyn and I had enough time to reflect on our marriage and our future. We finally came to an agreement and decided to make our divorce official. We both realized that there was no more love and trust between us, and that continuing the marriage would only cause more pain to each other. The divorce proceedings went relatively smoothly. As a result of my efforts during the year, I retained most of our joint savings. This gave me more financial security and freedom. Evelyn and I officially ended our marriage and started a new journey in our respective lives. After my divorce, I began to re-examine my life. I realized that revenge does not bring true happiness and satisfaction. It is only a momentary outlet that cannot fill the emptiness inside. I began to learn to let go of the past and to forgive myself and those who had hurt me. When I occasionally hear about Evelyn and Professor Xavier's current situation, a strange sense of satisfaction floods through me. They had hurt me, betrayed me, but now their lives had changed forever. They lost their careers, their reputations, and their once proud identities. This, perhaps, is the price of betrayal. But I also realized that dwelling on the misfortunes of others does not bring true happiness. I decided to start my life anew, pursuing my own dreams and happiness. I began to pay more attention to my inner self than to my outer vanity. Today, I am sharing this story in the hope that it will give some insight to those who are going through the same or similar experiences. It is true that betrayal and hurt can bring us great pain, but we can't let these pains dominate our lives. We must learn to let go, learn to forgive, and learn to look forward. Only then can we truly find inner peace and happiness. Remember, life goes on. No matter what we have been through, we have the power to create a better future. Don't let the hurts of the past define you, but use your courage and wisdom to write your own story. This is my story, a story of love, betrayal, and revenge. But more importantly, it is a story of growth, forgiveness, and rebirth. I hope my experience can give you some inspiration and encouragement. Remember, no matter how hard life is, never give up hope and love, because only love can bring true salvation. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.